Welcome and thank you again for joining. We have an exciting webinar here today with two great guests. But I want to start today with a story, a personal story, something that you might all relate to. About 2 months ago, I had to change a flight last minute. Kind of thing that happens to all of us that can be stressful and feel complex. Like a millennial, I wanted to handle it on the desktop, but I couldn't find my way around. So I ended up calling. Um, that's just my normal way of handling it. But I saw that I was going to take about 30 minutes to talk to someone. It was already kind of late. I didn't want to wait that long. And it gave me the option to redirect to my iMessage and said that I would be attended to in 5 minutes. So I took that option. Part of it, of course, I'm in this industry. It's exciting to try it out and see how other people have their experience. Um, being in the iMessage platform, that felt great. It felt like something very consumer friendly, but the experience kind of took a turn. First, I had a kind of automated experience that seemed to not understand what I was looking for and provide limited options. I can feel myself getting frustrated. Eventually, I did what a lot of us do and just say, "Can I talk to an agent?" Um, Again, when the chat agent came, I mean, the chat agent personally was lovely in their tone and the way they interacted with me. But once we got past the small talk, it took a lot of time in between responses. It kind of left me feeling like you're waiting for someone to text you back that's not going to, uh, which is really just at the end ruined the whole experience for me. Eventually, I got the service done, but that experience really left me thinking if I had to do this again, I would call. And really, that's something that we all want to avoid. It it's really a way that you just frustrate your customer and then you don't get the benefits of the chat platform and you've done all the work to get people to go. So today we're talking about how you can avoid this kind of situation in your chat platform. Uh, First, I'll introduce myself. I'm Nick Molina. I'm the head of product marketing here at ASAPP, and I'm based out of our New York City office. I'd like to also introduce our two guests. First, I'll start with Justin Mulhearn, Director of Solutions Engineering here at ASAP. Justin, do you want to take a minute to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Nick. Justin Mulhearn. I run our solutions engineering team at ASAP, and I've been focused on CX in the contact center for about the last 14 years of my career, especially on digital messaging and chat. Helped a lot of brands move off of platforms that weren't working, but also helped brands who were doing messaging for the first time. So, really looking forward to the discussion today.
Thanks, Justin. And we also have with us today someone who was in a position you might be in about a year and a half ago, Melissa Price, the Vice President of Customer Experience for Digital Self-Serve at Altice. Hi, Melissa. Thanks for joining us. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, Nick. Hi, everyone. Really looking forward to the discussion today. I come with a background of experience from a self-serve standpoint, really looking across all our digital spaces at Altice, from our app experience, web, chat, IVR, and really the interlinks across all of them and how we drive a better omni-channel experience as a whole. But also on chat specifically, just there's so much opportunity there. Happy to talk about some of our learnings and how we've navigated through this space. I've also had experience on chat across other companies that I've worked at, so it's definitely been an evolution. So thank you for having me.
We're really excited to get into some of those details. Um, again, some quick housekeeping. I want everyone to know this call is being recorded and will be sent out to you after the webinar. We also, after the conversation, have a great teaser demo that Justin's going to walk us through. And we'll have about 15 minutes for Q&A at the end. You'll see in the platform there's a section for Q&A, and you can just add that as you go along, and we'll get to those questions at the end in the last 15 minutes. So what are we talking about today and why? Probably you're here because you're not achieving the results that you want out of a digital platform. We'll start with going with our view on the three underlying things that are holding your platform back from succeeding. And then the flip side of that is how a great platform addresses these problems. Then we'll go into some real results that Melissa will be kind enough to share and talk about how we've got that and the value of AI native in getting those outcomes. And really getting to some of the detail on, we know this is kind of a big thing to switch platforms. So how do you make that real? What's some great advice for that? And finally, how you think about choosing a partner to grow with as your needs evolve. So if you're here, you probably use an omni-channel platform that has kind of the digital side, uh, really as a side project for them. Similarly, it could be a CRM platform that's just giving that as an offering, or a legacy digital platform that is probably an innovation laggard. Sometimes we hear of even basic things, right? They have outages, and their experiences are just not really optimized for the channel. And really, that keeps you from getting all the benefits. So summarizes to these three things, right? First, you have to get customers to go to the digital channel, especially if they're not already doing that. So, how do you shift them into that digital interaction mix? Then, when you get them there, you want to give them automation that's good for them. If they get to an agent, you want there to be automation that supports them, and all of that is really based on a foundation of good UX and making sure you have a great experience for that. That helps you with retention. Um, and finally, you need to have innovation and continuous improvement loops. A set it and forget it approach feels really good for cooking. For a chat platform, you really need to have innovation that keeps up with your needs, and just know that it's a constant evolution and it's a constant way of how do you optimize it. You're probably not getting that. I might not be telling you something that you don't know. I'm sure that a lot of you are experiencing some form of this in your platform. The reality is, inertia can be really powerful. There's a kind of an element of feeling safer with the devil you know. Uh, so my first question is to Melissa. You made this switch about a little bit more than a year ago. You were using another platform. I understand Altice had some issues with them. I'd love to hear about some of the themes of things that kept you frustrated, or even if there was like a handful of last straws that really said, okay, we've known this was a problem, but we have to do this now.
Yeah, happy to share that. So there were like three areas specifically that I'll highlight. One was around just the limited flexibility in terms of some of the insights that we were able to gather and be able to go, deeply enough to be able to uncover, really the root of some of these opportunities and how we would continue to grow in the chat space and deliver better experiences. And then how we present that to our customers and where we surface chat. The other one was really around the access, limited access in terms of being able to generate more flexibility for my team to then be able to make quick continuous improvement efforts through the call flows, through the chat flows, and just making sure that we had the ability to really test and learn and really make these real time changes. And then the last one I would say is just the engagement model. Also, kind of if we were going to start from fresh with a new partner, we wanted to make sure that we had a better engagement model at the onset of it, and somebody who's really looking at this as a partnership.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think those are things that really leaning to just the changing needs and being able to change as you need them. Um, Justin, I know you've helped a bunch of customers make platform switches into ASAP. Does this resonate? What else is common, or what are some of the other things that you see in other platforms that hold them back from success?
Yeah, this definitely resonates. I mean, there's so many inefficiencies and oftentimes problems that we see as we're working with sort of these legacy platforms and programs. But to Melissa's point, oftentimes it's just about the account support. Sometimes it's not even the technology, but if your customer success team isn't there with you every single week and bringing to you the new features or really working with you on a continual basis, odds are the program's not going to really reach its potential. Um, yeah, I think in terms of just with the programs themselves, and this is both operational and technology. I've seen a lot of programs out there that never really optimized for digital and are still coming in with a voice mindset. I mean, if you have a program where you're taking chats and it's a one-to-one concurrency like you had with voice, you're basically getting no value out of the program. But in a lot of programs, they tend to top out at like 1.2, 1.3 level concurrency and never really get beyond that. I think a lot of that does have to do with the underlying technology of the platforms themselves, because it's like from a basic perspective, you can have multiple concurrent conversations going on, but mental task switching between these different subjects can be pretty difficult. So you really need the tooling and different things to kind of help you make that shift rapidly back and forth between conversations as an agent. And there's so many. I will also say that as a from the end customer's perspective, when I see these legacy programs where there's no context being passed from a bot to a live agent, that always drives me nuts. That drives me nuts as a customer as well. And then oftentimes I find that even when you get to the live agent, oh, excuse me, that the agents just they're not empowered to do the same things that they could do on the phone, which is just the most disappointing. Hey, I just spent 10 minutes to get to this point in the conversation only to find out that the agent can't actually help me. I think, Melissa, you were talking a little bit about that earlier this week. How have you guys sort of dealt with that agent empowerment piece?
Yeah, I mean, I think context is so important. As you look at every handoff part of the process, and so making sure that you're delivering it through the lens of where the customer came from and have a common understanding of what may have been attempted before. So yeah, I mean that's an area that we're continuing to work on, but not something that would be solved overnight. But yeah, the context is so important, and then how that then ties in not just to the chat platform, but also the tools that our agents would use, whether it be on the chat side or whether it be on the voice side.
Yeah, great points.
Thanks. I mean, yeah, I think this is like some of it is just the pain you feel as a customer, right? And so it's great to just think about the specific lens in which they're coming from. Um, I think this flows nicely into the flip side of what we're talking about, right? We were talking about what you might not be successful in, and I think you've hit on some of these points on what do you need to be successful in digital. um, I think at the high level, all of these in my mind roll up to just a focus on excellence in the digital channel, right? So not just trying to copy paste what you do in voice or elsewhere. Um, and really that's how you drive that increase in share. uh, you really have like just a subject matter expertise in knowing when is the right moment to do that, and how do you do that in a way that has great UX so that you retain your customers, right? So some of the way we think of things is we want to make sure the tech is built to serve customers and agents, not to try to control and manage them. I think Justin, you used the phrase empowerment, and Melissa, you use that phrase, and that's really how we think of it, right? Otherwise, they just won't use it, and you don't get the benefits of agent efficiency. Um, and finally, I think all of that comes from innovation broadly, but specifically in this moment, AI native innovation, right? We're in a great moment for how we can think about revolutionizing the customer experience. That window is open, but it won't be open forever. So I think these are all the kinds of things that you would need to drive success. Um, Melissa, I think you were touching on some of those things, right? Like I think thinking about the engagement model, what, and thinking of the flip side when you're now like, oh, I have this opportunity to move somewhere else. What are the things you were looking for in that, either the engagement model or other details when you were looking into make that switch?
Yeah, so we have a team that really is, data focused, data led, and customer focused. But I think when we were looking at another partner for chat, it was really important that the ideas and the insights didn't just come from my team, but also from whoever we would be partnering with, and just making sure that there's other insights that could be brought forth proactively, just to be able to further understand, like, what are different ways of thinking about the problems to solve for, how do we uncover the root of some of these issues, what drivers may be behind containment or low containment, or poor experiences, as maybe surfaced through NPS, or other feedback that we get from customers. So really just trying to look at different ways, different angles in which we can uncover some of those opportunities to make sure that we're really finding out like what's at the root of it so that we can fully address it. And then also partnering with us closely on how to find the more optimized solution based on either some key learnings that were already brought forth from other clients or other customers, and some of those learnings could carry into the work that we're doing as well.
Yeah, um, that makes a lot of sense, right? You want a partner that is helping you look for those insights, so that in helping you optimize that, I know we talked earlier in the week about not just optimizing for digital, but even within digital, which I think that's really gets into how do you best personalize and make the experience for the customer in that specific moment and what they're going through in that specific situation.
Yeah, and if I could just share just like one specific example, it may seem small, but it can have an impact, which is when the customer is first interacting and engaging with us, initiating a chat, the intent, right? So being able to uncover the right intent. And so, we give customers the option to either select a list of canned intents based on our understanding of the context in which entry point they may be coming from, or they have the free text option. But being able to find the right balance between how much we lean in on the free text versus how much we're continually updating and refining the intent list, the canned intent list. I mean, those are things that we continue to cycle through just to make sure that we're delivering the best experience up front, recognizing when the customer is trying to interact with us, we know that we want to get them to the right place as soon as possible.
Yeah.
I can definitely appreciate that as an end user too. I mean, trying to get shifted around to different teams is it can drive you nuts. I feel like the intent identification piece, with ASAP's platform, we have a pretty good way to identify new intents that are coming in. You can pre-plan for them, but then also now there's this drive towards generative and actually being able to not have to model every single intent. And I know this is something that you're starting to think about as well, Melissa, but I feel like that's getting easier and easier now, where you don't necessarily have to know every single intent in advance, but can still address some things that are coming up organically just off of knowledge based content and other things that are available.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's really what we want to do is make sure we're molding the technology to the right use case and its best, highest and best use. Um, yeah, as we think about something that prioritizes digital and UX, but also has AI that's really built into it and not bolted on it as an afterthought, to make sure that you can really drive the results that you are trying to get to. Um, Melissa has been kind enough to let us share some of the results that we've gotten to. I know that we haven't gotten here overnight. These are exciting results. And I think we spoke earlier in the week, Melissa, about just some of the ways that we kind of phase it out, or even just thinking about, how do you start and how do you optimize over time? I know we alluded to that earlier. Um, I'd love for you to just talk a little bit in more detail about how we got there, some of the things that were surprising, or that you thought, okay, I have to like prioritize this first, and then we'll get to this other stuff later. But we knew we had a longer term plan.
Yeah. So some of the areas that we delved into first were really around just ensuring that we're providing the right intent identification, as we were talking about earlier, and that we're in all the right places. So the entry points were important to us to make sure that we're there when customers need us, and not just kind of in the background, kind of hoping that the customer discovers us. So really being present in those moments that matter is something that we continue to refine. So whether that's in the app as a backup support, leveraging chat there, or whether it's through our website and then making chat available there. So one example on the website is, when customers are in a non-logged in state, and let's say they forgot their username or password and they can't log in to pay their bill, being there in the moment to be able to offer chat as that next line of support, get them through that, login issue, or get them routed to an agent so that then they can resolve their issue more directly. Those were the types of things that we wanted to really uncover. What are the opportunities where we can drive more containment, where there may be a quick reply or bot-based solution that we can offer up to the customer, or if it gets to that next level of support, how do we identify those opportunities and then get them direct to an agent? So containment definitely, was one of our goals that we reached, but containment in the right places and in the right way, I would say. So not to misinterpret that stat. In some cases, containment is not a good option, and we need to rely on our chat agents to really deliver that best experience. and then the surfacing of the entry point. So those are like two big areas that I would highlight: the intent identification and that upfront, making sure that customers are able to get to the right flow and being able to get to that resolution path as quickly as possible. That's also part of the consideration in terms of what's driving that AHT reduction.
Yeah, I think that's great, right? It sort of goes to the idea of focusing on the long-term gains, right? I think when you're optimizing and not pushing containment when it's not the right situation, um, that makes them come back to the channel, makes them enjoy your brand and have a delightful experience. Uh, thank you for sharing that. These are kind of like fantastic results. I think I hope people in our audience are thinking this is like something a dream, something I want to achieve. Uh, but as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of inertia, right? We know that this can be a scary thing to move a platform. Oftentimes, you're trying to get some timing considerations done. So, just want to like say that for us, we are mindful of that in the position that you're in, and so we've built it to be able to let you get some quick value and to really set up in under 8 weeks. Uh, I know that that's a difficult thing for some other platforms to achieve. Um, but you made the transition recently, Melissa. Justin, you've seen this a bunch of times. I guess I'll start with Justin first on this one. Um, you have a few things in mind or some pointers on how you can make these kinds of transitions easier, or even some things that people in our audience who are considering making a platform switch should be thinking about?
Yeah, and every situation's different, but just thinking about some of the themes that I've seen, the first piece of advice I would give there is probably, at least in the beginning, skip the channels that aren't getting much use. I remember back a couple years ago when, Google Business Messages was coming on the scene to compete with Apple Messages for Business, and everyone was very excited at one point around Facebook messages as a support channel, and the same thing for Twitter DMs as a support channel. If I look at 2024, those probably aren't the areas that are getting the most attention. I mean, certainly now Google Messages is that's either turned it off or it's being turned off soon, right? Like that's now a defunct channel. But I just think about like that prioritization. So if your customer base is in Latin America, obviously WhatsApp should be what your focus is on. If they're in the United States primarily, maybe that's not something you do on day one. So just probably ordering those priorities correctly and doing what's going to give you the biggest bang for your buck. I would also say, it kind of goes back to a comment earlier as Melissa was talking about intents. You don't necessarily, as you're moving to a new platform, need to replicate all of your old flows. I think there's definitely a place for still having kind of that classic deterministic flows. In some cases, that works really well, right? If somebody has something simple like, hey, what's my bill balance? You don't necessarily need to have an LLM handle that, and sometimes you just may want to navigate through a menu system. But I think that as you look at your old deterministic flows, maybe you've got 50 flows in the old platform, but you only need to bring over 10. And then the rest of the use cases, you can look to generative to start to handle those. So use that as an opportunity, one, to save yourself some work, but also to up level the experience. And then I think the last thing would really be just embracing AI and machine learning for efficiency. And of course, I'm thinking about ASAP's platform here. There's so many capabilities that are baked in to give the agents a recommended response at the next turn of the conversation, or they could pass off a particular question to a bot by bringing it in. We call those automations. But there's just opportunities like that that are basically a training difference, right? But it's worth spending the time and giving the agents the opportunity to use those things so that you can see that big efficiency bump as you're moving over.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. I think that's all makes a lot of sense to me as just like advice and considerations. Melissa, I know if I remember correctly, I know when we were engaging in that transition, timing was pretty important. I think we had a pretty tight deadline.
Yes.
Melissa, you could tell us a bit more about that, and if you were giving advice to someone in the audience who's kind of like in the shoes you were in a year and a half ago, what kind of advice would you give them?
Yeah, I mean that's that's one of the more nerve-wracking things, right? When you're transitioning, is making sure that you hit that deadline, because you're cutting off your old platform and then you're moving on to the new one, and there's very little wiggle room for any mistakes there. So what was important to us as we thought about the planning behind it was make sure that between ASAP, my team on the digital side, and our IT teams, that we were all aligned on that plan. We were all aligned on the timing and what the level of effort would be to do that. And so grounding ourselves first on like what was MVP, what was truly MVP for this launch, making sure that we took into consideration, is it just a like for like, or is it or like for better? Do we have room for like for better? So those were some of the things that we were looking at, and then what the use cases were, if there was opportunity to augment the platform a little bit more on day one. But then when it came to actual execution and delivery, just really making sure that your running point and the partnership there is the important piece, again, to highlight that. With ASAP, one of the things that we appreciated was the extra level of effort that kind of went into them, like really leaning in on that transition plan, and making sure that we were able to meet that deadline. It came from our teams as well, people wearing many hats when it came to that last, 2 to 3 week time period, to make sure that we got all of our testing done and passed on time. And happy to report we launched with like no major defects. There was like one defect, I think, that we had post launch, and it was a small one. So it was really because of the collaboration across the teams.
Yeah, I love to hear that. I mean, it really is a collaborative effort, um, and of course, I love hearing stories of customers saying that we're a good partner in helping with that. I think it touches on something that Justin kind of mentioned earlier, right? It's not just the product and the features; it's actually like the partner that you get in the platform vendor. I think it's a big part of how we think of things and how we support our customers. Um, Building on that, I think this is like the kind of like nice segue. There's where we've gotten today, but I think we always think about how our relationships with our customers can evolve. I'd love for you to think about, or if you what you can share, about what's next for Altice with ASAP, and how you see the way that you use and engage with the um, messaging platform evolving, and also what's on your mind when it comes to generative AI. And this is a cool moment for the space, and also particularly in how it's being focused on customer experience. So we'd love for
Yeah,
your take on those things.
sure. We're continuously looking at it through a couple angles. So one is just that continuous improvement. What are the small things, but meaningful changes that we can make, and how do we rapidly test and learn our way into it. There's always opportunity to consider additional bot integrations, right? And so we built out some really important ones first, the ones that we knew were tied to not only top call drivers, but also ones that were tied to just big points of frustration, moments in time when customers, for example, are in an outage and they want to inquire about the status, or they have an appointment with a technician who's coming to fix their internet issue. And so these what I call moments that matter were something that we really leaned in on, and looking at what are the bot experiences where we can automate that and deliver a faster resolution for customers who are inquiring about those things. And then the entry points surrounding those. So whether it's something that is initially notified to them via text message with an opportunity to then link and chat with us, or whether it's something that is discovered through one of our self-serve platforms first, and then they lean in on chat as that next point of support. And then just in terms of like my own personal views around just Gen AI, and where I'm particularly curious about, seeing how it can dovetail more into just overall, work that's being done as a whole across the industry. Because I've heard a lot of um, comments around how other telcos are using and leveraging Gen AI. So there are many opportunities that I personally feel are interesting in terms of improving from a content creation standpoint and being able to more quickly be able to improve and update the content that's made available, that may be either customer facing or could be something that could help our frontline. Another area that has piqued my curiosity is around how to deliver more with a higher level of precision, the why behind some of these inquiries that from a support standpoint customers can come to anyone trying to get a more precise answer to where things may be a little generic. And then also looking at opportunities to drive more efficiencies in terms of how our frontline conducts things, or how do we look at other industries? Are there other industries where there may be some proof points there that could be looked upon to be able to derive better experiences across the front line to be able to support. There's a high cognitive load, recognizing that is expected of any frontline, and it just gets that much more complicated as self-serve platforms get more robust. And so what's left is just a lot more complex issues that frontline needs to handle. And so how can Gen AI serve as a better level of real time support for our frontline?
Yeah, no, I mean that makes a lot of sense. There's a little bit of this cat and mouse, right? Because now the things that the as automation takes more and more of what's of these conversations, what's left over is the stuff that's really edge case, really difficult or emotional. Um, so yeah, I think that that's where we start to see for us the opportunities in using generative AI to handle more of the automated part, and then really being mindful of the UX and what we're asking of the agent, and where they can be supported by generative AI. Thank you for sharing some of those, like your personal thoughts on Gen AI, and also just some of where we're going. Uh, I will say, it's, us at ASAP, we recently unveiled our generative agent. The difference we have generative AI in all of our products, what we have in the auto compose in part of messaging platform, and in the auto summary structured data elements, and extracting the great data pieces that you can use for insights. But this is the first time we really have something that's meant to be customer facing, and we're excited about a lot of what it can do. I think it's a real revolution in capabilities. Uh, I know we're talking to many of our customers about what we might be able to do with that. Um, I can share results from another customer. This one's actually in production, so we're very excited about that. We were able to get from signature to launch in under 40 days. So again, back to that delivery idea, we really are trying to find ways to make sure we can get time to value quickly. Um, but I think this was like in under a month, we saw an increase of 20 percentage points in containment in this customer, an increase in first call resolution of 12 percentage points, and we did all of that with sort of a do no harm, right? So the ratings of customer experience and agent experience remain neutral or improved, so unaffected. More often than not, you see as you increase automation that dips. We were able to hold the line on that. Um, so I think that's very exciting. Uh, on the other hand, I will say it's one thing to tell you about our generative agent and the great messaging platform experience. Another thing to show you. I know I brought up earlier that Justin's going to do a great demo for us. I do just want to, before I hand it over, remind everyone that we'll have Q&A after. So Justin, I'll hand the stage over to you for the demo.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. And I feel like Melissa, especially with what you were just talking about with the cognitive load on agents, because all the easy stuff is already handled. I'll try to actually hit on that in the demo a little bit, but I agree wholeheartedly with that. It seems like they're asked to do harder and harder things these days, and it's just, I mean, we find it difficult. Even sometimes we're just on like Slack or Teams, and you're in one meeting and somebody's asking about a completely different topic, and you have to switch over. So it'd
Yeah,
actually be nice to have some of these helpers there.
definitely.
But I'm gonna go ahead and we'll just go full screen on this one. And I'm out on the Hudson Insurance website, and coincidentally, all of our demo examples are named after the river that runs by our headquarters. I'm gonna go ahead and start a messaging conversation here. And right now I'm being greeted by Generative Agent, and I'm invited to interact with this bot in a pretty natural way, as if I were chatting with a human agent. So that you guys don't have to watch me type a bunch, I'm going to use dictation for my end of the conversation. Hi, I recently got married and I'd like to add my wife to my auto insurance policy. Yeah, her name is Jane Smith. Date of birth is April 1st, 1990, and the gender female. Yeah, the driver's license number, let me see here. Looks like B671238, and the state is California. Nope, I'm all set. One of the great things with Generative Agent is that you don't have to pre-plan the conversation. You ground it on different APIs and you ground it on knowledge base articles, and it's going to be able to reason and to figure out the responses. But it's all within the scope of tasks that it's allowed to do. So if I had asked it something completely off the wall, or maybe something that would normally require human approval, it's going to be outside of its scope. There's a lot of protections just to make sure that it deals with the things that you want it to deal with. And you'll notice that as I was interacting, I was pretty casual. I actually made some mistakes at one point. I think I had a word repeated here, and there's a strong error tolerance where oftentimes, usually, it's able to figure out what you wanted, even if the input wasn't perfect. Next, let's take a look at a conversation between a different customer and a human agent. In this case, the customer has come in on the insurance company's mobile app for the conversation. Because that customer is logged into the mobile app, they can actually have this conversation stay in sync even if they were to move to the insurance company's desktop. So this is really convenient. A lot of times you might want to start a conversation when you're on the desktop and then you need to get up and go do something else. You can actually have that conversation follow along with you. So this customer's name is Antu, and she realized that she was charged a late fee, so she wants to see if she can get that reversed. Hi, I realized that I was late on my last payment because I had closed my linked bank account. Can I please get that fee reversed? Now let's see what this conversation looks like for the agent. Before we dive in and respond to Onto, let me give you a quick tour of the interface. So over on the left-hand side of the screen, I've got three active conversations. The one at the top is the one that we just started, and you can see two other conversations that are going on at the same time. And as we go through this, you'll notice that there are a lot of things that make it much easier for the agent to carry on multiple conversations at once. Typically, it's kind of a big challenge for agents to have to do this mental gear switching between conversations. But part of why concurrency works so well in the ASAP messaging platform is because of some of these AI assistants that you're about to see. Over on the right-hand side of the screen, I've got all the pertinent data being brought in about who this customer is, what her recent claims were, what her billing account status is, etc. There's a lot of flexibility here with bringing in CRM and ticketing information, etc., just so that the agent doesn't have to swivel into different interfaces. So as the agent looks at this conversation and gets oriented, he's being presented with three different options to pick from. This is called auto-compose. So auto-compose is based on machine learning, and it is going to generate responses for the agent based on things that the agent or his teammates has said in the past in situations like this. It can also draw information from predefined responses or knowledge bases, but oftentimes the agents really like the ones that are organically generated for them. So this agent knows that from a process perspective, he actually needs to seek approval in order to grant this fee reversal. So he's going to go ahead and send a note to a supervisor to ask for this approval. And he'll say, can I reverse this fee? All right, so while he waits for his supervisor to respond, let's look in on some of the other conversations that are happening. Let's check in on this conversation with our customer, Letty. And interestingly enough, I can tell from this faded text on the icon that this is something that Letty is actively typing and hasn't sent yet. Being able to preview what the customer has sent oftentimes will allow the agent, perhaps in a lull, to go ahead and anticipate how they want to respond. And it looks like Auto Assist has a recommendation for us. She's asking about a premium discount if she gets her old house's foundation retrofitted. We've got an answer that we gave at a previous time for that. We'll go ahead and use that one. While we're waiting for Letty to respond, let's check on this other active conversation. Okay, so this customer, Jacob, is looking for a rate check. He's thinking about buying a new truck, wants to know how much the insurance on that is going to be. There's some good responses that we could use from AutoCompose, but we also have some options for what we call an automated flow, where I can essentially ask a bot to step in and to handle this rate lookup for Jacob, allowing the AI to take care of this fairly common and repeatable process here. Notice that as the AI stepped in to help Jacob, that freed up some capacity for me as an agent, and a new conversation then entered my queue. There's a lot going on behind the scenes to figure out how much is appropriate for an agent to handle at a given time. And beyond the machine learning aspects of it, we can even allow an agent to declare if they feel a conversation is particularly hard and needs some extra attention in that moment. But let's take a look at this new request that just came in. Now, you remember in our first human conversation that we actually had a request to give a fee reversal, and that came over to the supervisor. I've jumped over to the supervisor's interface now where I can see all the different conversations that are going on in the different queues. Let's take a look at what that request looks like. I approve this refund. Now, over in the main agent console, I see that my supervisor approved the refund. I'll pass it on to the customer. As I'm typing, you'll notice that autocomplete is actually recommending a completion to the sentence even in line. And now as the agent wraps up, he's presented with an automatically generated summary. And there's even a step further. Aside from producing this high quality free text summary, we can answer questions and pull out data that can be used to populate a CRM system, a ticketing system, a data lake, reporting that's downstream. But this is kind of the baseline default version of it that you're seeing here. And of course, for managers and analysts, the platform has all of the reporting that you need to manage a digital messaging program in terms of operational statistics and agent performance, etc. And built-in large language model analysis can let you answer all kinds of advanced custom questions about what happened in the conversation. For example, for billing disputes, how often is the customer asking to speak to a supervisor? How often is the customer saying they contacted previously? How often did things start positive and shift negative? And you can get really creative with this. Of course, the system will classify all the reasons for contact, but beyond that, it will also tell you new reasons for contact and help you to surface emerging issues and emerging trends in the conversations. So hopefully that gives everyone kind of
Thanks, Justin.
a good baseline idea of
I
what
always
we've
love
been
seeing
talking
that.
about.
That was a great demo. I mean, I think it always shows a lot of the value of what we can do, and it's good to show the real product. I think a lot of companies can put together a video or a demo, or candidly, I know this is my job, but a talk track. What matters is actually making it real. We have some great questions in the chat. Before we jump into the Q&A, I do want to mention a promotion we're offering. You know, based on the title of this webinar, I'm assuming some of you are unhappy with your chat platform. Again, we talked a little bit about how it can be challenging to get the timing right. And so ASAPP is offering to cover 3 months of platform costs for customers who are switching from select platforms. So please, at the end of this demo, we will have a button for you to be able to book a demo or set up a meeting, please bring that up with the people you speak with, and we'll work that out with you. Um, okay, some great questions. I'll send these out as I think makes sense. There's a question around making changes on the knowledge team and the knowledge base when you're staffing this. I think that can go two ways. So, Melissa, first, I'll just ask you. When you were launching the messaging platform, um, what were some of the considerations or changes that you were thinking about with your staffing your knowledge team? I think you might be on mute.
Can you hear me now?
I can, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So really the main focus for us was making sure that we had the right agent experience and the staffing on our chat agents first and foremost. But in terms of knowledge altogether, there wasn't really a huge shift on the staffing side of knowledge team. We really wanted to leverage the team that was already in place on our voice channel to make sure that we're um, identifying any additional opportunities that may be more unique or relevant to how we adjust those for chat. And then how do we make those available to our chat agents, either in a more consumable way and just making sure that the access is really easy for them, so that they can carry on and make sure that they're delivering a good experience, given that this was a different platform. We want to make sure that they had the relevant information at their fingertips. So I would say some of the basic things were really covered there, and just ensuring that all of our materials were up to date, and if there were any new use cases to be considered that were more unique to the entry points or the context for chat, that we address those up front. But I would say not much in terms of changes in terms of the staffing.
Great. I mean, yeah, there's just ways to make sure that it's an easier transition when there's less to change there. Justin, I know sometimes it's a different beast when we're thinking about the Gen agent experience. How would you say that someone might think of staffing changes for their knowledge team when it comes to that product?
I feel like these generative interactions, they're still relatively new. I mean, in the grand scheme of how long digital messaging's been around for. So some of this is to be determined. I don't think there's going to be like an immediate mass staffing change, but one of the problems you see throughout the industry is that contact center agent attrition tends to be one of the higher attrition rates of any profession that's out there. So I think that generative agent is going to provide some relief to that constant backfill pressure that a lot of brands are experiencing. That's my guess. Well, time will tell.
Yeah, that's a hope, right? That there's we know that sometimes people are asked to do too much with too small of a staff, and maybe this helps fill some of that gap. Um, Going through some of these questions, I do see there's a question around what channel containment. That's if that's referencing that last slide on the other customer that was within the messaging channel. I also see a question around maybe Justin, do you want to talk about the plans or how this might be different for the Gen Agent use case within voice, and if we have plans for that?
Oh yeah, so we already support generative agent for voice today. Can integrate with existing IVRs. It certainly doesn't need to replace what's there. The approach that we've been recommending is to take use cases, take intents that previously had to be escalated to human agents, and we can help you evaluate those to see if those are good ones to add generative into. On the other hand, if you already have certain intents and certain flows that are working very well with the deterministic flows, keep using those. So it's kind of an approach where you don't have to just do everything all at once, and you can test different flows and see what's working well for you as you move closer to that generative agent experience.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to think of it. Um, there's another question around intents and handling intents. I think it kind of goes back to the theme we were talking about. How do you prioritize? Um, I guess, Justin, do you want to talk a little bit about what our approach is in phasing out the right intents and choosing the right intents for Gen Agent?
It relates very closely to what I was just talking about. So in a lot of cases, I mean, we need to look at, which intents today are escalating to human agents. Those are the prime candidates initially. But then you also have to look at what information is available via APIs, what actions are available via APIs, because there might be some things that you'd like to pass off to generative agent today, but you're not ready to open up those APIs to replicate the things that the humans have access to inside of their GUI systems on the desktop, right? And then the other piece of this is also the knowledge base information that's going to be part of the grounding for how generative agent can respond. So you kind of have to look at, here's the KB info we have today. Maybe there's some gaps we need to fill. Here's the APIs that we have today. And oh, by the way, here's the stuff that usually gets escalated to human agents. And based on looking at those factors, you'll be able to come up with a pretty good hypothesis about where to start handing things off to the bot.
Yeah. Does that resonate with you, Melissa? And some of the ways that you think? I know that you have like great experience in the industry.
Yeah, no, I mean that really all like rings true, and I think that we always look at things from the standpoint of where the volume is, what are the volume drivers, as well as where is the biggest effort that's being made either on the part of the agent or on the part of the customer to be able to get to a resolution. So yeah, definitely on point with how I would think about it.
Thank you. Let's see more questions that are in here on the side. Could you talk at a high level, Justin, about just our approach to regulatory compliance and keeping things secure as people start to think about just both within messaging platform and for the Gen Agent product?
Yeah, there's so much to that topic as well. So if anyone that's watching right now, we are scheduling a follow-up demo, me or somebody on my team, I'm happy to go very deep on that and actually show you some of the tooling behind the scenes for how generative agent works. But essentially, the concept is you've got the grounding on the knowledge base articles, you've got the grounding on the APIs that are available, and then we use this encapsulating concept that we call a task. And a task has specific instructions about the types of things that the bot is allowed to help with. You got to think like if the KB information is not there and the APIs aren't there, it can't go outside of the scope of that already. But the instructions that are specific to the task are this additional layer of making sure that, hey, I'm allowed to help with refunds as long as they're less than $50, and within that take some flexibility and use some reasoning, or I'm allowed to answer questions so long as they pertain to this particular FAQ set that's been established. So as long as you have that task as that encapsulating piece, you really get some pretty tight control over what the bot is doing and making sure that you're able to maintain that compliance. And there's so many other layers beyond that, just in terms of using adversarial LLMs, checking on the input, checking on the output, some other secret sauce things that we're doing, but just to really make sure that the generative agent is going to do the things that you want it to.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
go
I,
ahead.
I should probably just mention as an aside as well, separate from generative agent, but just in general, the platform's fully PCI compliant. So that also gives you some flexibility just in terms of the type of data that you can transit through it.
Yeah, I mean, we've really built it, I think, with enterprise security in mind, and we know that there's a lot of brand protection and also regulatory reasons. So I think it's a pretty robust product. Um, you were kind of jumping into this, and it goes into the next question, but just the post production validation. So you know how to, as a subset of security, how do we think about the observation and monitoring side of it?
Yeah, the generative agent conversations, they're passing through the platform, and we've got this concept that we call flow success, where essentially it's looking at whether or not, I mean, you've got issues such as did the customer end up having to escalate after they were talking with generative agent, but ultimately did they have success in that flow of completing the thing that needed to be set up? There's a little bit of configuration that has to be done there just to make sure that we're measuring that the action was completed in a certain way. Then there's this whole other layer. It's part of our auto summary capabilities where we're going in and we're interrogating the conversation. And we're not just doing things like generating summaries. We saw that in the demo earlier, but we're also essentially asking a variety of questions about what occurred inside of the interaction. And there are specific data points that you can look at for, well, for any type of bot, but especially for generative agent, where you would be things like, did generative agent have to ask for clarification more than once? or did the customer have to repeat themselves when they were asking a question in multiple ways? And so even if generative agent came to the correct decision at the end of a particular flow or scenario, you'd still want to understand if it was a good experience. And so by inspecting the conversations for indicators like that, you'll know if it was smooth or not.
Yeah, that feels like it ties a lot to even kind of what Melissa was saying with the human agents, right? And how do you like optimize for the right channel and make sure that um, you're not just pushing containment where it's not right. Uh, so I think we're almost at the end here, but I guess maybe I'll throw that last one over to Melissa. And I think there's a lot of conversation around the continuous learning. What are some of the things when you think about your human agents and the messaging platform um, that you look for to evaluate, or, to make sure that we're optimizing for like long-term success?
Yeah, I think the details like really matter to the point that Justin was talking about, and really understanding not just the flow success rate. Did you accomplish what you needed to do, but what's behind that? And even in those moments where the flow success rate is high, what contributed to that, and understanding the details behind that. Chat transcript, and anything that can be surfaced in a summarized way would be really valuable there, as well as understanding when it didn't go well, what contributed to it. Was it something with the way that the flow was handled through the bot experience, or was it the handoff with the agent? Was it the way that the agent ultimately resolved it? Like where the opportunities lie. One thing that I'll say is, through any evolution of chat, and something that goes back to my prior life as well, is the more mature your chat platform gets, and the more insights and data points you get, you just want to go deeper, right? You just want to keep going deeper, and just trying to uncover those uh, special moments where things are really clicking, and how do you duplicate that, across other intents, and then just the learnings where things are not going well, and either driving up AHT, or just not really helping the customer out in the right way. So those are the things that I would pay close attention as you continue in your evolution of chat.
Yeah, no, I think that really highlights the importance of going through the transcripts, getting out the details, and using the insights in a way to just like do that continuous loop of improvement.
Yeah.
Um, I know we're almost at the bottom of the hour, so I'll stop with the questions there. Big thank you again to Justin and Melissa. I think really this has been a really fruitful conversation. There's a lot of detail and real examples, which I think sometimes is missing in other webinars. And so you guys have helped make this, I think, very interesting. Um, for the audience, also, thank you for joining, and thank you for your questions and your attention. We will leave the webinar open for a few more minutes. You can book the demo.